Hi everyone, welcome back to our channel. We are the Venossams, and on this channel we film about faith, family, fun, and of course share our experiences about living in Ontario, Canada.
Yeah.
So a few weeks ago we did a video as to why we relocated to Canada.
Yep.
And in that video we promised to share some of our experiences. Some of them have been culture shock, some of them have, things that we expected.
Yeah.
Just generally talk about what our stories have been.
So far.
Yeah,
Yes.
so far.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's get right into it.
Great.
Let's talk about the most serious ones first,
Yes.
maybe.
Okay.
And I feel like everybody in Canada, one thing that is peculiar to all of us,
Yes.
the taxes.
Woo! You can't run away from tax. You know when they say, I don't know who was supposed to sound rain tax. Dun, 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 dun. There's that song. Yeah, it's very constant. Like rain, that tax
Yeah.
is. It's amazing when you look at your pay slip. For most people here, I think they get paid every 2 weeks, and you see your pay slip and
It's like
tax.
half of it
It's a lot.
gone.
And if
on
you think that that's
taxes.
bad enough, wait till you get your bonus paid. It's even worse.
Yes, and
It's-
even like day-to-day living as well. When you
Yes.
go to buy groceries or any
Yes.
items, you go into the store and what you see on the shelf is like times two
Yes.
of what. Well, not,
Well, not
times two.
two,
Let me not
yes.
exaggerate.
Plus
but
13% of whatever
yes,
is on the shelf.
yes.
And for those that live in Ontario,
Mhm.
it's 13% tax. And I think that was one of the big shocks as well, because back home, the final price is what's on the shelf.
Yeah.
But here, the final price is what you're told at the counter, and sometimes it can be
Exactly.
significantly more than what you saw on the shelf.
Yeah, and I think that depending on the country that you come from,
Yes.
taxes might not be that high.
Yes.
So of course it takes a bit of getting used to. And even living in Canada, that's why you find that some people like move from Ontario, for instance,
Yes,
to
to
places
other places,
like Alberta,
where it's
where
like 8% and
yeah,
stuff like that.
is there any 5%? Do we have any?
I don't think so. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm not certain, but I think it's 8 in Alberta. And it's funny because I said to Funke, I say to Funke sometimes that after they take your tax, whatever is left, they still take 13% of that. So whatever you see on your pay slip, you're still going to give away 13% because you buy something and you pay tax, unless you want to be living on fruit and vegetable all your life, because you don't pay tax on fresh fruit and vegetables and some food items. But every other thing, you have to pay tax on it.
And that brings me to something else that we should let them know.
Yeah.
Like where about these taxes, you should also have knowledge on ways to like claim your tax refunds, for instance. Because
Yes.
every year we all file taxes.
Yes.
And they give you an opportunity to claim tax refund
Yes.
on certain items like maybe professional courses that you've done,
Yes.
your tithes and offerings.
Yes.
I remember
Or general charitable giving.
Yeah, charitable giving. I remember the ones on tithes and offering. It was a bit of a shock to us at the beginning because we were like, why would you want to rob God? Exactly. I like we used to be concerned. In fact, I think we were hesitant at the beginning.
We were, and I think at least for a year or two, because you pay tithe and your offerings, and they give you receipts at the end of the year. We're like, I'm not used to the idea of getting a receipt for paying tithe and offering. I'm supposed to go and make a claim from government that I give this amount.
Yeah.
And in our minds back then, we kind of felt
maybe the church would get less than what we are giving.
Yes.
In fact, our pastor had to like comment on it at some point. Maybe he saw that people were not doing what they were supposed to do. He was like, look, we get everything that you put out, like that you put, down to God. So just feel free, take advantage, So please have all the knowledge, everything that you can claim back.
Yeah.
Please do. It helps.
So just to explain that a bit better, the way it works is if you give the church $100, the church will end up getting the entire $100.
Yeah.
But what the tax body or the CRE then does is, if your total income is $10,000, for instance, they'll take away the $100 from your $10,000. So they're not taxing you on the entire $10,000; they'll tax you on $9,900.
Yeah.
So it reduces your exposure to tax, but the church still gets the full thing they need to get that you donated.
Yeah.
So you're pretty much not robbing God. You're just saving yourself some extra tax that you'd have paid on top $100 that you give to a church in the first place because you didn't spend it, you give it away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that takes us let's talk about the next thing, cost of living. It ties back nicely into the cost of living.
And I think that's one of the biggest issues as well. Cost of living ranges from everything, guys. And now let me tell you what cost of living means to me. Cost of living is everything from insurance, for instance. Some people pay as high as $400 every month for insurance. If you
Is that
convert
for car
for car, a
or
regular
just
car
cars?
or an SUV or whatever that is, $400 per month. I'm not
Mm.
exaggerating. If you convert that to naira, that's about 500,000 naira per month. It's not per year, please.
Hmm.
Per month on
That please.
insurance. On insurance, and that money is going to go up. It keeps going up. They keep topping it up. Now that's car insurance alone. If you add home
Hmm.
insurance has maybe about an extra 150 thereabout that you pay. Home insurance is even worse. Every year it's guaranteed to go up. Sometimes car
Hmm.
insurance doesn't go up. Home insurance always goes up. Then you have your energy bill, you have your hydro bill, you have your water bill, you have your it keeps by your gas bill as well. It
And you
keeps
can't
piling up.
run away
You
from any
can't.
of those
Oh, you
things.
can't. You can't.
Yeah.
They a lot of them you're either it's tied to your account or it's tied to your credit card, and if you don't pay
Mm.
after a certain month, for sure they will definitely disconnect you. And so unlike back home in Nigeria where power
Yeah.
supply was a bit not at its best, here power supply everything almost runs on power supply. So if you don't have the
Mm.
power supply, your house is not going to get heated or cooled. You
Mm.
probably cannot even cook. Your fridge is off. Everything just collapses. So
Yeah.
it adds up real fast. The cost of living, particularly in Ontario, is a lot. I've heard people pay house rent for one room as high as 1,000 to 1,300 per month. That's about
Mm.
1.7 or 1.8 million naira per month on room alone.
And I feel like it has gone worse. It has
Yes,
gotten worse,
yes,
like since the time that we moved.
yes, for sure, for sure. It has. I
Mm.
feel particularly grocery items have gotten worse
Yeah.
because back then, and I don't remember what it was.
You'll
Uh,
fill your cart. You'll go
yes,
buy
you
$200. Will almost fill a cart, and you'll feel
exactly.
good.
It wasn't
But
common to buy
now,
things $200,
mm,
but you go to the store, spend quite honestly, without exaggerating, 300 $400, and you really can't tell what it is that you bought because everything
mm.
you pick, by the time it adds up, it's a lot more expensive than you expect it to be.
And is it the same here, whereby like back home in Nigeria, where insurance you
Yeah.
could either choose to do like comprehensive, you
No.
could choose to
No.
like this is it, like
The insurance here, there's no third party,
mm,
whatever. No. So the insurance here is technically all comprehensive. However,
yeah,
within your insurance, you can choose certain clauses. So, for instance, you can choose to add a new vehicle replacement, or you can
mm,
omit that. You can save yourself
yeah.
$1 here, $1 there, but at the end of the day, it's not nothing significant.
But let's look at, like that saving sometimes it
Yeah.
can be penny wise pound foolish, because if
Yes.
you've watched our story on how our car was stolen in
Yes.
Canada, you
Yes.
will find that paying that complete
It
insurance package
helps.
really helped us.
It helps. It helps because it's probably just an extra $7 or $5
Yeah.
per month. But if you need to make that claim, it
Hmm.
adds up real quick.
Yeah.
It adds up real quick. And of course, let's not forget things like phone bills as well. So unlike Nigeria, where you can decide that I don't want to buy credit,
Mm.
here for most lines, of course, there's the top up as well. They have that type, but most people use a postpaid. So at the end of the month, the telecom company will take away their money. So cost of living for sure is a huge one.
It
At least in
is. It
Ontario,
is.
for
It
sure,
is.
is a significant one. The last one I'll mention on this is gas prices. Yeah.
Mm.
When we first came, it would be that at night, for instance, if you late at night, you could go out and you see gas prices as less than $1. That was way back in, I think the last time I saw that was 2019. Right now, gas prices hover somewhere around $1.50 to $1.30 ish, and it adds up because by the time you fill up your tank, back then you fill up your tank with probably $50 or maybe 60. Right now, you're filling up your tank with $130 ish.
Yeah.
So it's a lot. It's a lot. Those prices are going up real fast. Yeah.
Okay. I think the next thing that we should talk about is the weather. Like
Yeah.
things, yeah,
Yeah.
the weather.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody knows coming to Canada, it's not like we do not expect for it to be
Yes.
cold, but honestly, you can never prepare your mind enough for
Yeah.
it. Like every winter, I'm like, oh my goodness,
Yes.
like walking in the cold,
Yeah.
particularly if you're like for people that have to, because I take the train to work most days, like oh,
It's crazy. It's a lot.
it's cold, but
Yeah.
the good thing is that once you're dressed for it, and of course in your houses, you have the heating system. In the offices, you have the heating system, even on the like public transportation
Yeah.
as well. So you don't get to feel it as much. But just that period in between getting into the car,
Yeah.
getting on the train,
Yeah.
getting into the houses, oh, it's cold. And Ontario is even as cold as
Yes. It's
many
not the
other
coldest.
provinces.
Yes.
So yeah, just prepare your mind for that. Dress warm as needed.
Yes.
Like get your heating covered.
Yeah. I find that the trick to it, quite honestly,
Mm.
is embrace it. It's not going to change. So
Yeah.
you might as well embrace it and look forward to it.
Mhm.
It's funny because I find that weather is one of those things that people take, it hits people different. So kids are
Yeah.
excited.
Oh my
They want to look forward
goodness.
to it.
Yeah.
They play in the snow and all of that. So
Yeah.
it's exciting for them. If you take the bus, you're probably not happy with the weather because apart from the cold, when it begins to melt, it gets very slushy,
Slushy and
and
dirty.
yeah, and you probably don't like that.
So all that winter, white winter that we always see in the
No,
movies,
that
I'm
one is
like,
when it's still
oh, so
fresh.
cute.
Yeah,
Oh, it could
yeah,
be very messy. And of course, the weather also brings us to extra things that you have to do around the house.
yes,
Like you have to take the snow off your
yes,
driveway.
yes,
And sometimes you have heaps and heaps.
yep,
Sometimes you might need a snow blower.
yeah,
No, it could be a lot of work.
yes, yes. The weather for sure is, and it's funny because in Canada you could step out in the morning. It's pretty warm. By the time you're coming back in the evening, the weather has
Yeah, you
flipped
see a
on you.
lot of memes about that. So you don't
Yeah,
know how to
it's
dress. You have
exactly.
plenty layers.
Yeah,
At some point, you're taking it all
I
off.
think I've been a victim of that. A lot of times I'm inappropriately dressed. I'm probably wearing a short sleeve and it's cold, and I'm like, when I left the house, it wasn't this cold.
But you and the kids, they like to oppress me. Like they're always making fun of me. And I'm always feeling cold because really, like you said, kids they don't even. Sometimes you walk around and you see kids wearing
Yes.
the most
Yeah.
in quotes
Yeah.
like during winter, and really our kids are like almost like that. Particularly
Yeah.
Zizi, like she's
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm not
They're
cold,
not
I'm not
cold. They're
cold,
never cold.
and then yeah,
You have to force
wondering,
them to wear the
yeah.
jackets. Yeah. And not just winter as well. When it's summer as well, it could get pretty hot sometimes. Yeah. It could get pretty hot. I think the only
Yeah,
reason why
yeah,
we are talking about winter, maybe that one's a surprise because again,
yeah.
coming from Lagos, Lagos is pretty hot as well. But this could
Yeah,
also get hot.
I think that you have a
Yeah.
like right on the ball because that heat. I know that sometimes it could be so
Yes.
intense. You're
Yes.
having a headache.
Yes.
Yeah, so most people talk about the winter. Really,
Mm,
that's
yeah.
summertime
But
too.
if you want to see the senior brother of heat, it's Mexico in August. That is where heat meets. That one is heat times two. If you've not seen our Mexico vlog video, go see. It's you get burnt
now,
from the very first
now we
hour.
respect our heat,
Yes,
our
we love the
summer.
summer here now. We can't complain.
Okay, next point, the DIY life in Canada.
Yeah,
Like the help, like back home, most of us come from places where you have like a good community,
yes,
you have people to assist
yes,
you, family members to assist you that you can drop your kids off
yeah,
with, or even just things like making your hair for
yeah,
us ladies. You have a plethora of options, even on your road,
yeah, yeah,
but here you don't have them as many, and the good ones, are few. In fact, sometimes you will have to like kiss many frogs
yeah,
before you get like somebody that would really make
yeah,
good hair and stuff
yeah,
like that. And sometimes it could be expensive.
yeah.
Making hair is one of those things that you should just not even bother converting, because
Mm,
if you try to do that,
yes,
you'll just be frustrated.
hundred
And then
percent.
some people will claim that they can make the hair, and then when you make it, you're just like, huh, because everybody is trying to do DIY, multiple sources of
Yeah,
income.
yeah,
So sometimes that could be
eh,
a bit of a shock.
yeah,
And also like things like other skilled labor, like plumbing,
yes,
carpentry, building your
yeah,
furniture.
yeah.
I think like on like back home in Nigeria where you could just
Somebody, the
call
carpenter down the road, or
exactly,
someone you have on speed dial. It's
exactly.
different.
But here, well, the good thing is that frankly we are kind of hands on. We
Yeah,
are very hands, so
yeah,
we enjoy doing things
yeah.
like that. But yeah, it could come as a shock for those. So just prepare your mind that you would learn. You'll make some mistakes along the way,
Well,
like some people have
I know.
in this house.
Yeah, yeah. And again, you don't have to do it if you're willing to spend the money, quite honestly. But
Mm.
if you think about how much you save yourself by, because for most of those handy guys, the fact that they show up to your house alone is $300.
Mm.
So that's the minimum, and then they do the work. So on average, you're paying them some 500, 600, 700, depending
Well,
on what you want
depending
them
and
to do.
depending exactly.
Yeah. So if you want to save yourself some of that money, it's fine. You can save yourself. And I can think of so many things I've done around the house, and I did myself. Some I got right, some I didn't exactly
Most you
get
got
it.
right.
Yeah, well, if she says so. The very first thing I did, we had to redo it. And that was a painful thing because I spent my time, we wasted material, and then we now got on to clear it up and redo it again. But hey, I find that it's a good thing. It's funny you mentioned that as well because for some reason, I'm not sure if it's just people around my circle, but most people I know that have families that have refused to come here, This is probably a number one reason.
Really?
Yes. They're
Hmm.
always like, oh, I'll come to your Canada. I have a help here. I have driver. I have security
Mm.
man. What would happen? How would I get things done? All
Yeah.
of that
And you can't blame them
is
really
a
because these
comfort
are
that you don't
real,
want to give up.
yeah, these
Yeah,
are real issues.
yeah,
And also depending on like Canada, I feel like for things like that affect relationships
yes.
sometimes. It's not somewhere that you can stick to the standard, oh, these
More
are the
like
things that the guy
traditional.
exactly, these are the
Yes.
things that guys should do, these are the things that women should do.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
you have to be prepared to work
yes,
together, to partner together to make
yeah,
things work.
yeah,
Like for instance, we're talking about having little help. You have to plan your schedules around
yes,
picking up kids,
yes,
dropping them for activities.
yeah,
Like you guys just have to work together to make things work,
yes,
really.
100%, 100%. And
So depending on how strong your relationship is,
yeah,
it can either like make it stronger because really you enjoy those things, you laugh
yeah,
about them,
yeah, yeah,
or just tear it down because you're like always like, I can't believe I have to do this. The guys
yes.
are saying I can't believe I have to. No,
Yeah,
no, no,
yeah,
no.
and it's true because the minor things you never considered
Yeah.
might become an issue. Things as simple as who does the dishes, who does the
Mm.
laundry. You
Yeah.
just have to realize that it's not one person's job to do. Anybody can do it,
Yeah.
depending on when it arises. But what you also said brought something to mind for me. I think this particularly applies to single people. The idea or the sense of family or the
Mm.
absence of it. So in our equation, Foke has a lot of family. I have no direct
Mm.
family here. Luckily for me, her family has always been my family, so I feel
Oh.
like I have a lot of family because of that. But I know a lot of people that probably come here and they're lonely. In fact, I have a
Mm.
friend that each time he comes to see us, for some reason, I think we always maybe we're having barbecue and stuff, and he sees the number of family around. He's like, "You guys are so lucky that you have this many
Yeah, it's a
family around. It's
blessing.
such a blessing to have that."
Mm.
Because those guys also help. Sometimes you want to go on a trip, you don't want to go with the kids. You say,
Mm.
okay, I have a sister that can take care of the kids,
Yeah.
and you can have, so to say, help to take care of people.
Yeah.
So it's one thing to consider. If you don't have family, it can be a bit lonely in Canada, quite
Yeah,
honestly.
but that brings us to another
Yeah.
point because you also have to have an open mind,
Yes.
like create friendships, build a community, like
Yeah.
reach out to people, let
Yes.
people be free to reach out to you as well. I'm
Yeah.
not saying that, oh, right from the first day, go and drop your
No.
child with Mr. A or
Yeah.
Mr. B,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
be personable and
Yeah.
also show yourself personable so that
Yes.
the same way you can just build that community from scratch. You don't always, the greatest family sometimes is not blood,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
just be open to have new friendships and just build new
I
connections.
love that you say that because a lot of people in Canada are immigrants. So they're in the same
Mm,
situation you are in. They're
yeah.
also trying to settle the way you're settling. So they're
Hmm.
also trying to find good people, just the same way you're looking for good people.
Yeah.
So people are a bit more open to building connections, genuine connections. Yeah,
Yeah.
especially where you live. If you have neighbors around you, I think it's just helpful to be nice to your neighbors.
Because you
Yeah.
never know,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And that kind of brings me back to something that we should also talk about
Yeah.
is that building connections. I said it's like, oh, please do it,
Yeah.
but sometimes it could be hard because most of us
Yes.
are coming here when we are older and we already have our ways of doing things. We probably had relationship trauma,
Yeah.
like friendship ish
Yeah.
trauma,
Yeah.
and we just don't want to start all of that in
Yeah.
our 20s or 30s or even 40s,
Yeah.
depending on it. So sometimes that can be hard, just building genuine connections. Now you're
Yes.
always second guessing people, and they will tell you, Canada, don't like in the workplace, keep your personal life personal, keep your professional life professional.
Yeah.
But please
Yeah.
also, don't take it too strict. Like be smart, definitely, but
Yes.
be open to building connections. But realize that sometimes it can be
Yeah.
not, might not come as easy as it would be.
Yeah.
But yeah, it certainly works and it certainly
I
happens.
absolutely agree. I absolutely agree. I think for me, the biggest one is from the workplace. Yeah,
Yeah.
because back home in Lagos, one the protocol for building relationships was kind of different,
Mm.
and then there was, depending on what side of divide you're on. For some people, we just didn't like this idea of networking, and
Mm.
networking is vital. And so, if it's
Yeah.
not a skill you build naturally to just network with people, build mentorship, have people just let's go grab coffee, let's have a side chat and all of that, it becomes a bit difficult for you to build it.
Mm.
But guess what, those things are
It's
extremely
needed.
important. They impact how you grow your career, what opportunities are open to you, even finding a job sometimes. So you
Yeah.
find that one of the key things people say here, if you're looking for a job, is look up for people, professionals already in that industry on
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn, buzz them, ask them to go out, have a coffee chat with you
Yeah,
or
and not all
something.
of them would answer you.
None
Not
of
all of them
them.
will respond
But
to
you'll be
you.
amazed the number that respond. I know how many
Yeah.
people have reached out to me and said, "Oh, Frank, someone reached out to me on LinkedIn. This person is in your field and they want to have a chat. Do you mind
Yeah.
talking to them?" And I think the same thing happened to you
Yeah.
recently as well.
Mhm.
A lot of people have those conversations and people are quite willing to help.
Yeah.
If only you would take the time and effort to build. Again, for some people it's harder than others, but it's absolutely beneficial.
Very, very. And I think another thing that I would also mention is just the general atmosphere and culture
Yeah.
being different,
Yes.
right? So back to the workplace, for instance, you know how back at home, well, depending on where you work,
Yeah.
and this probably applies to all countries, like you have like some inside, jokes and some inside slang, the way you say the joke that
Yeah.
comes across,
Yeah.
or maybe something is happening like in our political scene.
Yes.
Maybe for instance our president makes say something,
Yeah.
you will come to work the next day, maybe
I,
like repeating the joke, and
yes.
all of you get it and are laughing.
Yeah.
But
But
here, like,
you're the outsider. Yeah, you
exactly.
probably will not be
And
able to relate as much.
yeah, and that's
Yeah.
why most of us still maintain our connections on
Yeah.
social media. We want to
Yeah.
know what's going
Yeah.
on. We still want to like feel that
Yes.
energy coming from back home because it's
Yes.
different.
Yeah.
And that, like, talking about that as well, depending on how much of the social like butterfly that you are, things like going to parties, oh and best, you used to
Yes.
have that back to back,
Yeah.
back
Yeah.
home. But here, all of that is not as common
Yes.
as they would. You have to create your
That,
own new O and best
yeah. Yeah.
from time to
Yeah,
time.
absolutely, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one other thing that comes to mind is, and this is a huge one for me as well, is the fact that we are raising those of us that have children. We are
Mm.
raising children in a culture we didn't grow up in.
Yeah.
So you're forced, because I don't know what high school or elementary school feels like around here. The best knowledge that we have of it is what we're hearing from our kids right now,
Mm-hmm.
and so you have to help them navigate a
Yeah.
space that you didn't grow up in.
Mm-hmm.
The times are different, the location is different as well, so
Yeah.
it's a bit tricky. So
Mm-hmm.
for parents coming in as well, if you're bringing kids, I think there's a bit of open-mindedness to it, but there's a bit of being careful, because sometimes I find that people assume that if I send my child to a Catholic school, that's all I need to do.
Mm.
All will be nice and good. No,
Yeah.
it's not all going to be nice and good. Catholic schools are good. Even public schools are good. Private schools are good. Whether you send your child to a private, a public, or a Catholic school,
You
trust
have to
me,
be hands on. You
yes, you
still
still have
have
to
to
be
be
very
hands
hands on,
on.
because they're exposed to certain things that you only probably get to know of in hindsight. You don't get to know of real time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, you have to be very hands on, and also like parenting, like Frank said, it's always a constant trying to find like a balancing act,
Yes.
because number one, you are trying to like let them still appreciate your culture and
Yeah.
some things that you typically would do. Like depending on where you are from, like most Africans, we are very particular about respect, about
Yes.
how you
Yes.
present yourself to
Yes.
adults, But you also realize that over here, having a voice is so important.
Yes.
Being confident, being outspoken,
Yes.
is very important. So you're constantly trying to balance
Strike a
that,
good balance. Yeah.
culture, religion as well, for those
Yes.
of us that, depending on what your
Yeah.
religion is.
Yeah.
But also wanting to make sure that they
They fit into the society,
yeah,
yeah, and you're setting them up for success in future. And that's a
exactly,
really good
exactly.
point.
So it's a constant
Yeah.
balancing act.
Yeah.
You want to like infuse the culture, but you also have to be realistic to know that okay, this is where we are. And those kids are very smart.
Yes.
Like right now, our kids know that okay, if you see an African,
Yes.
you have
Older
to show
person.
exactly
Yeah.
this is what
Yeah.
you do, but
Yeah.
it might not necessarily not that you don't greet those people as well,
Yeah.
the other people as
Yes.
well, but it might not be as expected. So it's just a constant balancing act.
Yeah, and it's interesting you also mentioned culture, because culture is one of those things I suspect for most people that you lose a bit of the moment you
Yeah.
leave Nigeria, because you don't have that community that enforces the culture.
Mm-hmm.
So whether it's language, so for us, unfortunately, we speak two different local languages. The English we are speaking now is the English we speak every day at home. So unfortunately,
we speak some Yoruba.
well, we
And
try
some
to speak
Igbo.
Yoruba and some Igbo, but these kids are not picking
It's
it up
not,
because it's not the everyday
yeah.
language.
And that's on us, but that's story for another day.
Yes.
Because our kids are eager to learn. Like they always
But
come
think
to
about
us to
families
say,
around us that we know. How many of
Yeah.
them do their kids speak Yoruba? Even the ones that both parents are Yoruba.
even the ones in back home self.
Even the ones back home. But I think it's even if it's bad back home, it's worse here. Yeah, the chances of but I know there were those Yoruba classes they started at some point. I don't know where those things went to, but I find that culture, dressing, language, maybe for
Yeah.
some people, food. Our own, I don't think we'll struggle with food.
Well, in a way, we have, because well, let's bring us to another point.
Yeah,
When most people talk about food, getting used to food in Canada, I think we didn't have that problem
yeah,
because we were
yeah,
like we didn't have that problem, right? But for me, the shock in terms of food is with raising kids. Like
yeah.
you know how back home, like things that used to excite you. Like I think maybe I should also come to with the fact that things like
Times have
times have
changed.
changed,
Yes.
right? But sometimes I get a shocker like with plantain and eggs, you'll be like, oh wow, this is exciting. And your child will just be like, okay, do we have to eat it? I'm like, plantain and eggs. Do you know what that is? Oh, even dressing. You know how we used to be very excited about our
Yeah,
moms buying very, lovely dresses, flowing dresses,
yeah,
our Sunday best, as we
yeah,
like to call it. But now because most kids around them are not coming, not like they're not dressing well, but they don't have that elaborate Sunday best, so to
yes,
speak. So your
yes,
kids, after a while, will be telling you, this very flared dresses. Do we really have
yeah,
to? Those things always break my heart sometimes, but yeah, those are the
yeah.
realities of where we are now.
True, true, true. Different things to consider.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's again, everybody has their own realities. These are our own realities from our own perspective as
Yeah.
parents with kids. When we came into this country, our son was 9 months old, our daughter was
Hmm.
3 years old. So they were pretty young and they've grown now. They're now 9 and 6.
Yeah.
But these are the some of the realities that we've personally experienced.
I think one other thing that we should mention and
Yeah,
very important is
yes.
the health system.
Mm,
I know that
that's good.
it always comes as a shock to many of
But I
us.
wonder if it's Ontario only though. But at
Mm,
least Ontario health system. But yeah, go ahead.
yeah, it's so. What word can I use? But
It's funny that even Canadians agree that the health system in Canada is not the best. Yeah.
yeah,
They have the technology, they have the know how, but the
hmm
structure is terrible.
and even the know-how we have it,
We
but
do have the know
not
how as
as
well.
many people
Yeah.
like we don't have as many doctors compared to the ever-growing
Yes.
population.
Yes.
I think it's just because of the shock sometimes as to how long you have to wait,
Yes.
in the hospital, and even like Frank said, just the structure.
Yeah.
Like back home, if you didn't want to pay for a public hospital, you
Yeah.
could just, go and,
Almost everybody
pay
did
for
private hospitals.
exactly,
Yes.
right? But here you are all forced to use the same system,
Yes.
and it could be very, very. Ugh.
Yeah. It's. I know that there are conversations ongoing in Ontario right now to have the private sector participation, and it's all part of
Hmm,
helping that system
yeah.
to have private sector participation in health system. But it's so if you go to see a doctor, you go
Yeah.
to see a GP, you wait, you're just seeing a doctor, a person talk to you, and probably write some things. Most likely they'll write some tests or write some medications, and you go.
Hmm.
Unlike back home in Nigeria, where you're seeing a doctor, if you need to be treated, they need to put drip on you. They are putting it right there. This one, if you
Mm,
need drip, they have to send you to a general hospital to go there and go and collect. They
yeah.
can't treat you. They can't admit you in the place where you meet the doctor
Yeah, or
themselves.
if you have like you said, like you need a referral for a
Yes,
specialist,
yes,
the specialist is not in that same
no,
place. They'll give you a date.
and you most likely be
You
on a
have to
waiting list.
wait.
Yeah.
Yeah. So really, in Canada, the prayer is just that don't. Well, maybe if you have an emergency,
If you have an
maybe when
emergency,
you
you should
call
call
nine one
911.
one,
Yes.
and they'll even tell you when you call some
Yeah.
clinics, like if this is an emergency, drop and
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it could be frustrating, particularly when you have young kids and oh,
Yeah.
well, it is well.
It is well. It is well. It is well. Two more things for me. One is housing. So housing is a big issue in Canada. If you know anything about the whole Canadian housing market, it's a significant issue. There's shortage of houses, and so because of that, prices tend to go up every now and again. Luckily, inflation rate is coming down, so it means that houses are becoming a bit more affordable.
Mm,
But what I would always say to people coming to Canada, the earliest you can buy a house, please try to buy a house. Because whether you're paying rent or you're paying mortgage, you're paying someone something. So you're better
mm,
off paying mortgage and getting something back in return. I've seen different videos of people saying, "Hey, it doesn't make sense to pay mortgage. You should rent instead." I've not seen any sensible one yet. I think the logic they give behind it is all flawed. Because what you're getting from house, the main thing you're getting is not the money you're paying, is the appreciation on the property. So you buy a
mm,
house, and 5 years later, the property has appreciated, even though you're still paying off the house. If you sold the house, you've gained capital gains on the appreciation of the property. So
Yeah.
that's one to consider in terms of housing. And the last thing I'll say, it has not been my personal experience, neither has it been Funke's personal experience, but I know people have talked about things around racism and all of that. It was a big issue in 2020, again, with all the Black Lives Matter and stuff. I know it exists in Canada in a more subtle format. So again, people have different realities. Prepare for it if it ever happens to you, but also be open-minded, because sometimes I feel there are illusions of it versus the reality of it. Some people see things and assume it is, when in actual fact it's just humans being humans. It's not, they're not anything.
So true.
Yeah. So
And I think one thing, even though we've not experienced racism as in a big picture, one thing that will constantly come in face of you is the fact that you're a minority.
Yes.
You cannot hide it.
No.
Before, we were like, wherever you come
Yes.
from, you are all the same.
Yeah.
But here you are described as
Yes,
the minority.
you are.
And sometimes, it's that sometimes that attention.
Yeah.
You don't even want it because it becomes too much.
Yes.
Like, okay, let's talk to us.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. You'll definitely be the minority anywhere you go. But yeah, it's a good thing.
Yeah, and even for our kids as well, because they have a time in school where they're talking about, like,
Yes,
forgotten
that one is the worst. So they do these things where they kind of focus on black. So usually I believe Black History Month is usually February, and they will try to do some things to support. And when they come home with activities that they did, they're like,
even the kids are not really like, no, we don't really like all the attention.
Yeah.
And sometimes, like,
because
depending
most
on the
times they're the
stories,
only black people in their class.
yeah, and the stories that they come with
Yeah.
are not even the stories that they can relate
No.
with. In fact, I remember our son coming back home one day, and it was like one of his classmates came to give him a hug.
Yes.
So probably because
they are told about slavery and all of that,
and the guy, we were like, so how did you feel? He was like, I don't know.
Yeah,
but
it's
while
good
it
to
was
learn some of
sweet,
those things.
For the classmates to do that, but at the same time, it also makes the kids feel some certain way.
I agree. And sometimes they sing songs or tell some stories, and you're like, I think some of these things should be done by a black person. Sometimes when someone else tells your story, you don't get it right. But hey, that's a bit of our story. Judge for yourself if Canada is still worth it.
We are still here, so
we're still here. Hopefully that tells you something.
Exactly.
But yes, different realities apply to different people ultimately.
And this is like, we were just joking just now. It's not us, discouraging anybody from coming, but it's just letting you know that to be prepared. Canada is a wonderful place to be. I would not trade it for anything. Yeah. But that coming with preparation is very important.
Yeah. I might trade it for some things, for some other things, I don't know. Because quite honestly, who knows, we might decide to pack our things and go somewhere again. But I won't trade it for the past. Maybe I should put it that way. Yeah. But hey, we're always happy to answer any more questions anyone has. If you need any guidance that we can provide, we are not immigration consultants. This is just our personal opinion, but we're happy to help. Yeah.
Okay. That brings us to the end of this video. Thanks for watching. Like Frank said, if you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comment section. And if you're new to this channel, or if you're a returning watcher and you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing and joining the family. And until the next one is bye.